we made some tea. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the bloke you're stealing from. The name's Alistair Rigby, but as far as you're concerned, I'm Willy fucking Wonka, and you're taking a shit in my fucking chocolate factory. Easy, boss. Don't get upset. When I have to go to the dentist, I'm upset. When Liverpool beats Arsenal, I'm upset. But when some little shit decides to take over one of the most profitable territories in the country, I'm beyond fucking upset. I'm very fucking upset. So, from now on, you're under new management. You will work for me, and in return, you'll receive an allowance.
Allowance?
Yes, allowance. As in, I'm allowing you to keep 10%, and I'm allowing you to keep drawing breath on this earth. Now, you either get down, or you lay down. What's it gonna be, sunshine?
This wasn't no movie. The smart thing was to say yes, get up, and leave the room. But then I thought to myself, what if this was a movie? Look, fuck you, fuck the plane you flew in on, fuck them shoes, fuck those socks with the belt on it, fuck your gay-ass fairy faggot accent, fuck them cheap-ass cigars, fuck your yuck mouth teeth, fuck your hairpiece, fuck your chocolate, fuck Guy Ritchie, fuck Prince William, fuck the Queen. This is America. My president is black and my Lambo is blue, nigga. Now get the fuck out of my hotel room. And if I see you in the street, I'm slapping the shit out of you.
I think this one spent so much time in the cinema. Teach this cheeky bastard a lesson. Nobody fucking move!
Oh man, this is bad.
What is this? A casting call for the Sopranos reunion? Do me a favour, tell room service nobody here ordered the extra large whop with a side order of wops. Whoa!
It's rare when we get some news from Akira Toriyama himself on Dragon Ball Super or the future of Dragon Ball Super, but that's exactly what we got today. The new information comes from the man himself, and he is here to explain to us something amazing, something huge that really gives us a clarification as to what we've been seeing thus far and where the future of Dragon Ball Super is going to be going. Guys, this is some pretty big news.
All right, I'm actually getting a little excited now.
So normally Akira Toriyama only comes out for, say, if a movie has just ended or before a movie comes out. Normally around that time, that's when he has his press release, that's where he has his interviews. He gives a lot of information during these times, but sometimes, rarely, in between projects, he actually gives us a little bit information on the future or hidden lore in Dragon Ball Super. In one of these, we got the historic Yamashi and S-Cells interview that basically told us there is an original Super Saiyan God, his name being Yamashi, and at the same time that we got the Saiyans have S-Cells, which are basically midichlorians for the Dragon Ball world. So what the hell did Akira Toriyama come out and say this time? What is the news that is so big, so massive, means so much the Dragon Ball world and the fandom that I couldn't go to bed before I gave you this information? This is Toriyama's latest message from Anime Comic, and it confirms something major right before the release of the Dragon Ball Super superhero anime manga, which is essentially just the movie in anime manga format, colorized, the events of the movie, nothing really new right there. Toriyama states, the movie up to now have followed major episodes in the 10 years between the original manga's Majin Buu arc and the final chapter. Superhero is a story right before the final chapter. Thanks to the excellent director and staff, it was well received as the best yet by all those who saw it. I'm glad I was able to take part in it too. If I may toot my own horn, with the anime comics you can easily enjoy that consistently wonderful quality and might also discover many new things. Please check out every little nook and cranny, Akira Toriyama. So what he is saying here is that the movie's events take place in that 10-year time span between the ending of Buu and the very last episode of the Dragon Ball Z story, where Goku goes to the tournament and meets Oob, which basically this is coming from Akira Toriyama, so I don't know, he forgets a lot of his own lore sometimes, and he's not like the best on, you know, keeping the storyline straight, but this is confirmation as to what the storyline or the timeline is for all these events, because a few months back we were all trying to figure out where is Pan in this, how old is she, and trying to kind of use some arithmetic and some calculations to see if that fit into where this takes place. And honestly, even me, myself, and a lot of others, we thought that Dragon Ball Super Superhero took place after the end of Z. Well, Akira Toriyama says absolutely not. That is not the case. So what this guy is saying is that Beerus, the god of destruction, Golden Frieza, the other gods of destruction, Goku Black, the Torment of Power, Broly, Beerus, Moro, Granola, Gas, and Beast Gohan, Orange Piccolo, and the monstrosity that is Cell Max all take place before this episode of Goku training and going to the tournament to find Oob. This all takes place prior to that. That means all these events basically accumulate to this moment. Now, the ending episode of Z doesn't really have anything that really pulls on the fact that all these elements should be apparent in that last episode, because you could always not have Beerus there, you could always not have Whis, you could always not have certain characters, not every single character needed to be there. It's not like the biggest retcon in the Dragon Ball timeline, not by a long shot, besides the fact that Bulma actually, you know, is taking active measures in making herself look younger during the 10 years, and then in that last episode she's complaining that she looks older, and she's visibly drawn a little bit older. But that means in the universe that Oob comes and trains with Goku, we have all these events, all these different powers, all these abilities, all these new characters. They're all out there. So now we just have to wait after this story to take place. And what I'm saying is that in the manga, we're getting the prequel and the superhero manga to this, at least the version for the manga. That means right after that, as you see right here, we're going to be getting End of Z. So I wouldn't be surprised if Akira Toriyama either redoes that last episode in a more Dragon Ball Super tone, or the manga does it for him, or we just skip right over that and jump into brand new stuff after the End of Z. Personally, for me, I love the End of Z episode. I always have. It's nostalgic for me, but I'm not married to it. I can have some changes, and honestly, it doesn't really have that many things in it, as I said before, that really need to be changed that much from the things that happened in the 10 years. Nothing in the 10 years really affects it in that way. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this. We finally had the clear confirmation that we've been wanting all freaking year long as to where Dragon Ball Super Superhero takes place, and Akira Toriyama says that we're still stuck in those 10 years, as crazy as that might sound. Let me know. This is going to be Blackscape signing off. Take care, guys.
Subscribe for more content.
There are a number of super moves and techniques in the Dragon Ball franchise. Some are well known and others are rarely used, but should be used more often. All of the moves done throughout the franchise are powerful, but some are clearly way more powerful than others. That being said, there are some techniques that are very powerful, but still don't see a lot of screen time. In this video, we'll be looking at some of the moves we need to see more of. Let's take a dive into the moves that aren't just a variation of Kamehameha. Goku's healing ability. You read that right. Goku has the ability to heal. Healing is a technique we've seen a few notable characters do in the franchise. Dende is the first one that comes to my mind, but other notable healers were Kibito and other Supreme Kai. But our favorite Saiyan is able to heal minor injuries, and we've seen him do it twice. During the movie Cooler's Revenge, Cooler knocks down a bird. In a fit of anger and determination, Super Saiyan Goku takes that bird and heals it before it flies away. It's generally agreed, though, that movies aren't canon, so we see Goku do this again in Dragon Ball Super. In the Tournament of Power, Goku is able to resuscitate Master Roshi with his Super Saiyan God energy. If you look at these two instances, what looks like healing just seems to be Goku transferring his energy into others. It's kind of like when he gave his energy to Frieza after his fight. If Goku has this kind of potential, he could dish this out more often. It might have even saved a few of his friends' lives. To be fair, though, they have Senzu Beans and the Dragon to revive fallen allies. Anyone who's seen One Piece can tell you the advantages of stretchy arms. Piccolo has an assortment of odd powers that make him an interesting character. As long as his head isn't damaged, he can regenerate and heal himself, making him ageless in a sense. His arsenal of ki-based attacks is among the most unique in the cast, with his signature move being the Makan Kasapo, or the Special Beam Cannon. Out of all of his attacks and techniques, his stretchy arms, or Demon Hand, is among the most underutilized. It's said that Namekians don't have bones. They're supported by cells in their body, and it allows them to regenerate and be pretty flexible. It also allows Namekian warriors to expand their arms to extend their reach. We've seen this power a total of 3 times in the entire franchise. In the 23rd Martial Arts Tournament, Piccolo uses this technique on Krillin. We see it come again in the Dragon Ball Z movie, Cooler's Revenge. We see it for a 3rd time when Piccolo uses his Demon Hand to restrain Frost. Not for nothing, but I think this technique is severely underutilized. Striking an opponent with a melee attack from a distance does give you some advantages. Telepathy is usually reserved for very mentally powerful beings. Goku is indeed powerful, but physically, not that mentally. Goku is so dense that he needs to count on his fingers to get to 1. Mental limitations aside, a power that we've only seen Goku use twice is his telepathy. Both of these instances are early in Dragon Ball Z. The first time we see it is when Goku speaks to Krillin telepathically to let Vegeta go during the Saiyan Saga. The other time is when Goku reads Krillin's mind to catch up on the events so far on planet Namek. Both instances involve Krillin, which tells me that this might not be a true form of telepathy. It could be argued that this is just a representation of Krillin and Goku's strong bond as friends. After all, Krillin and Goku have been friends since they were kids all the way back in Dragon Ball. Despite everything, Krillin is Goku's oldest friend, so it could be reasoned that they share a special bond. This probably explains why Goku doesn't use it for anyone else. Krillin isn't involved in a lot of fights after the Frieza saga, and he doesn't have this kind of bond with any other character. Not even Vegeta or his own son. Speaking of Krillin, we have a move that honestly should do a lot more damage considering its name and effect. Despite knowing the Kamehameha, Solar Flare, and Destructo Disc, Krillin just cannot catch a break. A few sources say that the Destructo Disc, or Kienzan, is Krillin's signature move, but the truth is a number of enemies have variations of this move. Frieza has the Death Saucer, a deadlier variation of the Kienzan, and is even capable of harming the user. Perfect Cell has also used this technique, however his genetic makeup is composed of all the Z fighters, including Krillin. Unlike a normal Ki Blast, the Destructo Disc is able to injure an opponent that is much stronger than the wielder. We saw this when Krillin used it to slice Frieza's tail. It was even effective against Vegeta during the Saiyan Saga. In fact, the only opponent the disc didn't work on was Cell. Perhaps that has to do with Krillin being so far beneath Cell that even a move like that couldn't touch him. If that's true, it says more about Krillin than it does about Cell in terms of power level. It means that Krillin wasn't so far behind Vegeta and Frieza, huh? With a world dominated by large muscles and strong energy blasts, the idea of using mental powers seems a bit extra in a franchise like Dragon Ball? Yeah, it's silly, I know, but really think about that for a moment. Even in the early days of Dragon Ball, the idea of using psychic powers or telekinesis was seen as a novelty. Chaozu has telekinetic powers, and he's shown to be pretty powerful in Dragon Ball, but that doesn't really come up again in Dragon Ball Z. In fact, when we make the jump to Z, the only people who seem to use telekinesis are villains. Goldo uses telekinesis to paralyze Krillin and Gohan. Frieza uses it to move mountains and even uses it to kill Krillin. Cell, of course, uses telekinesis to create his arena for the Cell games. When it comes right down to it, this power has a wide range of uses, and can be used in a number of ways, but it also requires focus and concentration. In a Dragon Ball fight, the combatants are normally zipping around one another. With a fight like that, it would be difficult to hold them in place for very long. Additionally, you would be better off firing a ki blast than taking the time to lift up a boulder and throw it at your opponent. This next entry is more common, especially in Dragon Ball Super, but this power is used by one kind of being almost exclusively. Hakai is the power of the gods of destruction. It allows them to, well, destroy. Outside of destroyers, there are only a handful of powerful individuals who can use Hakai. Frieza proved that he could use it when he tried to kill Goku with it. Toppo also showed he had the ability in the Tournament of Power. Lastly, Goku has shown that he can also use this power. So far, Goku has only used this power once, and it appears only in the manga. During the Zamasu saga, after perfecting Super Saiyan Blue, Goku attempts to use Hakai on fused Zamasu. Unlike Beerus's Hakai, Goku's is slow and requires him to concentrate on one spot. This almost destroys half of fused Zamasu, but he uses Future Mai as a human shield, which forces Goku to stop. With the manga and anime still going on, it is possible that Goku will use Hakai more regularly. He's unlocked Ultra Instinct, a form that is said to surpass even the gods. Bearing that in mind, will Goku ever use Hakai again? It's honestly hard to say. Despite detecting power levels and other extra senses, a fighter still relies on their eyes in order to fight. Back during Dragon Ball, a solar flare was a powerful technique developed by Tien. It would blind a person who looked in the direction of the user. Of course, there were a few ways of getting around this. If the user had their eyes closed before the flash of light, they could avoid being blinded. During Dragon Ball Z, this technique was used by heroes and villains alike. Because Cell was made up of all the Z fighters' DNA and techniques, he was able to use the solar flare, and did so frequently when he was outmatched by the Z fighters. The solar flare has been used in Super as well by Krillin, Future Trunks, and Goku. However, there is a version of the solar flare that is much more powerful. Like 100 times more powerful. Well, then let's look at Krillin's own solar flare times 100. Yes, this special version of the solar flare is so powerful that even if you have your eyes closed, you'll still be blinded. Additionally, it stops the user from detecting ki for a short time. The only time Krillin's used this technique was when he was training Gohan for the Tournament of Power. I know, we said we'd look at moves that weren't the Kamehameha, but you know what's better than one Kamehameha? Two Kamehamehas. This is a move that needs no introduction. It's the move we all know and love, the move we've all tried ourselves at one point growing up. Many people know how to use this technique, ever since it was taught to Goku and Krillin by Master Roshi. Yamcha, Gohan, and Goten all know how to use the Kamehameha. You'd think from the form it requires two hands. Well, that's not exactly true. Gohan managed to defeat Cell with a one-handed Kamehameha, and that one lasted like 5 whole episodes. Before Gohan, however, there was the fabled double Kamehameha. During his fight with Frieza, Goku unleashed a double scoop blast with both hands to try and get the drop on Frieza. After that, we see Goku go for a triple in the movie Cooler's Revenge. Goku unleashes a whopping triple blast on all 3 of Cooler's goons. Dragon Ball Super has given us a lot of old moves with new versions and new ways to use them. I think we're due for the return of a double Kamehameha. Have you noticed that Piccolo has an affinity for grenade-type attacks? Of all the moves in his arsenal, he has 2 named after grenades, the Hell Zone grenade and the Light grenade. Both of these moves came about during his fight with Android 17. It shows Piccolo's knack for thinking outside the box and creating new moves on the fly. However, they often aren't as effective as he wants them to be. When he used the Hell Zone grenade, Android 17 used his barrier to deflect them. When he uses the Light grenade, it was out of desperation. It was literally the only thing he could think of when he faced Imperfect Cell. The move proved to be very powerful, but sadly, it wasn't powerful enough. Perhaps that's why he doesn't use it as often as the special beam cannon. However, we did see a return of the Light grenade during his fight with Moro, a villain from the Prison Planet arc in Dragon Ball Super. When he uses it on Moro, Piccolo developed a self-destruct version of the move. It was poised to take the Space Wizard down, but sadly, Piccolo was taken out before he could use it. The last technique is one straight out of Naruto. I don't care if Dragon Ball Z came out first, Naruto is known for shadow clones. The Multiform Technique was developed by the Triclipses, or three-eyed people. So, Tien, basically. The technique takes the user's energy and splits it in half to create 2. Then that energy is split to create 2 more. Basically, by cutting your power in half for each clone, you can create 3 solid fighters that can act in tandem with you. This technique was first used by Tien against Goku in the World Martial Arts Tournament. He must not have passed the technique along because the only other character to use this technique was Cell during his fight with Goku. The multiform technique is more of a hindrance because in order to do it, you have to split your energy up 3 ways. So unless you're much more powerful than your opponent, you'll be at a disadvantage. During Dragon Ball Super, Tien would use a stronger version of this move, one where the clones were more solid and acted independently. Still, teach that technique to Goku. A Goku who could go Super Saiyan Blue in multiform would be a powerful combination. And those are just a few of the moves in Dragon Ball that could use more love. What'd you think of our list? Let us know in the comments down below what moves you think are underrepresented in the Dragon Ball franchise. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a like. Hit that subscribe bell icon to get more CBR anime content.
Good to see you, John. It's my new guy who works on my squad, Jake Hoyt. Captain Lou Jacobs. You ever need to talk to the Fed, you talk to him first. Good man. He can take your back for you.
Pleased to meet you, sir.
Stan Gertzky over here, he runs the DA shooting team. You think about him before you pull the trigger, because if you're wrong, he'll snatch your fucking nuts out, use them for dice. Detective Doug Roselli right here. Handles high-dollar theft cases for the French poodle crowd. You know, if you lose a Picasso, he'll find it for you or die trying. He's a good man.
Pleased to meet you.
Good man. Boom, shoot. Get yourself a baseball stake or something.
Ah, Jess. I don't know why I'm meeting you. I don't talk to dead men.
I ain't dead yet. Fucking prick. Excuse me. Quite a long face, Doug, huh? Fed sees your house or something?
Fuck yourself, Alonzo.
Tell him the story. Come on, tell the story.
Oh, you think it's so funny? You tell.
No. It's your story. You tell it.
All right. This is serial burglar. Chasing him for 12 months. A real slickster. Gave up nothing. Captain's riding my ass the entire time. Sentencing was today.
Judge is female.
That's right. Landers.
Yeah, I know Landers. She's a sharp lady. No?
So before the hearing, guy gets hold of some peanut butter, packs his ass crack with it. Then he's standing tall before the bench, and he's waiting to give a statement. So he shoves his hand down his pants, comes out with a gob of extra chunky Jif. Bailiffs won't come near him. Now he's looking the judge right in the eyes. He licks his fingers clean. So the judge says, oh, this poor man's insane. He can't go to prison. Orders him to psychiatric.
She fell for it.
Yeah, that's because she's so fucking smart. The time she found out it was sandwich spread, the order was signed, the guy's been transferred.
Proceedings closed.
Yeah, closed.
That's wrinkled. 6 months in the puzzle factory, then they'll call him normal and let him loose.
Never ever do a day in prison.
Yeah, give him credit, though. Shit, he worked the system. Deserves his freedom.
Yeah? Think so?
Or not.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna find this guy on the street. And I'm gonna do him.
You better take his bullets from him, Stan.
Lonzo, heard you had an expensive weekend in Vegas. How did you ever screw up so bad?
Nothing. It's nothing. Forget it. You know, I didn't know. It's not my town. I'm not omniscient.
The Russians don't care if you have a badge. They'll whack you. You ought to hop a jet out of here.
Why? It's an easy fix.
How?
Just cash in an account.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Whose?
One of my old ones. My first one. It's not a problem. problem. Look, the guy's a high security risk anyway. If I'm not around, who's gonna keep him off the radar? You? I'm just taxing him, that's all. Okay?
It's your call. I do not want you to dick this up. I do not want to see you on the front page like those other assholes.
Yeah, I understand. Who's driving?
Me. Rear Mercedes?
Okay.
It looks like someone's been doing their push-ups, sit-ups, and drinking plenty of juice. Why don't you and I do some private training?
OMG, I would so love to learn how to do the Kaioken.
You bet! I'll even show you my special power pole technique.
Goku, you are so rad. Dad, we're just going to train. Stop being weird.
The only thing weird here is Kakarot putting his hands on my baby girl!
Daddy, you have done this so many times. When Goten and I were hanging out, you overreacted like a total geek.
I want to take off your bra.
You bastard!
And when Yamcha offered me flowers, you knocked out his teeth.
Hello. You come around here often? Wait, Vegeta, that's your... Oh my god. I flirted with a monkey. I almost committed bestiality.
You're still a monkey.
Are you feeling angry, humiliated, is that it? Fool! You don't know!
For every Kamehameha and Final Flash in Dragon Ball, there's a Wolf Bang Fist, or Dynamite Kick. In other words, while some of the techniques used throughout the franchise are powerful, destructive, and straight up awesome, there are just as many attacks, moves, or transformations that are weak, useless, or mostly ineffective. So, we're taking a look at the weakest techniques throughout all of Dragon Ball, and ranking them from somewhat effective to completely useless. Starting us off, we have a technique that some might not think is all that weak. The Spirit Bomb. The Spirit Bomb has been used all throughout Dragon Ball Z, and even in Dragon Ball Super. And although it was used to completely obliterate Kid Buu, it's actually not all that effective. The attack consists of gathering energy from one's surroundings, then throwing said energy at an opponent in a massive ball of destruction. Sounds pretty badass, right? You're not wrong. But think about how many times the Spirit Bomb has actually been effective. It's been used 5 times in total, including Trunks' Spirit Sword, with only 2 of these being effective enough to kill the target. A statistic that, combined with how long it takes to charge up the attack, makes the Spirit Bomb one of the least effective techniques in all of Dragon Ball. It's not the weakest attack by any means, but it's not the strongest either. Another not quite weak, but still ineffective technique is Super Saiyan 3rd grade. No, we're not talking about Trunks or Goten. Get it? Because they're little kids. Go Super Saiyan. Yeah, it was a pretty bad joke. Anyway, we're talking about the form between Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2. This form is what happens when a Super Saiyan pushes past Super Saiyan by inflating their muscles with energy in order to massively increase their strength. Sounds pretty effective, right? Nope, it's actually completely useless due to the fact that all that extra muscle lowers the user's mobility and speed, making them an easy target for someone with superior agility. Future Trunks learned this lesson the hard way when he beefed up to Super Saiyan 3rd grade in his fight with Cell, finding himself bested in speed by the bio-android. This made Trunks look rather dim-witted, since Goku and Vegeta quickly figured out the downside of the form, as well as Cell, who demonstrated the faults of inflated muscles to Trunks firsthand. Like the Spirit Bomb, the Evil Containment Wave, or Mafuba, hasn't had the best track record in terms of effectiveness. It's been used a lot more than the Spirit Bomb, so the average rate of success is a bit higher, but overall, the Mafuba has only been effective less than half the time it's used. This is especially true whenever it's used in a moment of life or death. Think back to Dragon Ball when Master Roshi attempted to use it on King Piccolo like his master had done successfully many years prior. It failed, and he died as a result. Tenshinhan failed as well, and the technique was forgotten until Dragon Ball Super, where it was attempted on Zamasu, but once again failed. The only time it worked in the franchise was when Master Mutaito used it on King Piccolo, and when Master Roshi used it to eliminate fighters in the Tournament of Power. We had a bit of trouble ranking this one, and you can probably guess why. The final explosion was the self-destructive attack, in the literal way, not the psychological way, that Vegeta used in an attempt to destroy Majin Buu before he could destroy the Earth. The attack consisted of Vegeta unleashing all of his Super Saiyan 2 energy at once, resulting in a massive explosion. While this sounds incredibly effective on paper, it failed to do anything to Majin Buu when Vegeta first used the technique. Well, Buu was splattered into pieces, but his regenerative abilities allowed him to reform, meaning all the attack did was kill Vegeta. It's a powerful attack indeed, especially since it was used effectively and with the survival of Vegeta later on in the Tournament of Power. But the risk involved and the 50% success rate makes the final explosion a relatively ineffective attack that probably shouldn't be used more than it already has. Vegeta wasn't the first character in Dragon Ball to self-destruct as a last resort to defeat a powerful foe, since Chaozu did it before him during the Saiyan Saga. It's actually kind of unfair. Vegeta is thought of as a hero for his final explosion, despite ending the lives of half the audience of the World Martial Arts Tournament prior to his death, while Chaozu is thought of as useless for doing the exact same thing. We're of course referring to Chaozu's attempt to kill Nappa with a self-detonating technique, one that ended up failing completely, by latching himself onto Nappa's back right on the spot that we all have trouble reaching when there's an itch to scratch, making him hard to get rid of. Chaozu turned himself into a living bomb, exploding after saying goodbye to Tenshinhan via telekinesis. Unfortunately, the attack was completely ineffective, and Nappa emerged from the smoke unscathed, making Chaozu's sacrificial attack one of the weakest in all of Dragon Ball. Next up, we have a technique that many may have forgotten about, or didn't know existed in the first place. Master Roshi's Thundershock Surprise. This technique involves shooting a lightning-like energy blast that shocks opponents and keeps them trapped in an electric field. This technique deserves some credit, as it's capable of killing and makes it very difficult for opponents to escape from the electrical field. But it's only been used a few times in the series, and doesn't seem to be as effective against other superhuman opponents. Again, not the weakest technique in the franchise, but also nowhere near the strongest of all time, and because it falls in the lower tier of attacks, we're gonna rank it as number 15 on our list. Strangely enough, Piccolo's used a version of this attack throughout the course of the franchise, but even with his great power, it's still not that effective. Being able to make clones of yourself is definitely pretty useful, but in relation to the other, much stronger Dragon Ball techniques, its power doesn't quite compare. Known as the Multiform, this technique has been used by both Tien and Cell, but the former was the first to display the cloning ability. By splitting himself into 4 clones, Tien's able to overwhelm opponents and gain the upper hand. Useful, yes, but once you realize that each clone is only a quarter as strong as the fighter using it, it's easy to see how weak a technique it is. But we guess it does have the advantage of allowing one person to serve as an entire barbershop quartet. You think Tien has a good singing voice? We're getting off topic here. The point is that while having clones of oneself can be useful in quickly turning around a fight, the multiform fails overall as a technique. Based on the name of this technique, you might think that it involves magic, or summoning witches, or some kind of dark art with a powerful effect, but that's not the case. Despite being called 4 witches, this technique involves growing 2 extra arms. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to us either. Maybe the name is a translation error, or maybe it's just part of Dragon Ball's weird naming conventions. But there are no witches involved in this technique, just 2 extra arms. The 4 witches was first used by Tenshinhan in his match against Goku during the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. This match also showed how completely ineffective of a technique it is, since despite gathering up a ton of energy, Tien's 4 arms were easily combated by Goku simply moving his arms so fast that they functioned as 6 or 8. Yeah, if your technique can be beaten by a kid flapping his arms, then maybe it's a dud. Imagine if the boulder from Indiana Jones was a warrior. That's pretty much Mona from Universe 4, since her ability to turn the bottom half of her body into a huge orb makes her a dangerous obstacle to deal with. However, while this technique, known as expansion, which seems like a bit of a ripoff of Choji from Naruto, is useful and able to hold its own against a Super Saiyan, it's also a bit one note. This is to say that expansion just lets Mona roll. And that's it. As long as someone knows how to combat against a giant rolling obstacle, they're fine. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that the combatants of the Tournament of Power were forbidden from flying, most opponents could easily dodge a big rolling boulder of a fighter. Even if Mona's power increases with her size, there's no denying how useless this technique is against most warriors, especially those who can fly. Somewhat similar to Mona's expansion is Botamo Shield, which is less of a technique and more of Universe 6 warrior Botamo's natural ability. Botamo, who may or may not be a ripoff of Winnie the Pooh, comes from a race of aliens with soft, pliable bodies that can take an extensive amount of force without experiencing damage. The simple act of letting his elastic body take all of the force dealt to him is known as the Botamo Shield, and while it can be effective, the character's elimination in the Tournament of Power showed just how useless it is against a very strong opponent. Initially, Botamo was depicted as being tough to beat, since attacks couldn't do anything to him. But in the Tournament of Power, Gohan was able to knock him out by simply punching hard and fast enough to push Botamo closer and closer to the edge before eliminating him with a Kamehameha. We're not actually sure if you can classify tricking someone into taking a present disguised as a bomb as a technique, but it's close enough. And since the present for you attack was incorporated into a number of different Dragon Ball games, we think it's worth looking at. Mr. Satan is the first and only person to use this trick, originally utilizing it after failing to end Boo with poisoned chocolate, a task given to him by the people of Earth who still believed he was the warrior who defeated Cell. The exploding present, a handheld video game console, wasn't very successful, which is why it's in the top 10, or rather the bottom 10 in our ranking. Not only was the explosion ineffective in damaging Boo, but the villain also thought it was part of the game, calling what normally would be a deadly experience fun. We couldn't talk about the weakest techniques in Dragon Ball without including Yamcha's Wolfang Fist. Although the rush attack has gotten Yamcha through some tough battles, and it even managed to get the best of Goku once, it's still just a series of fast physical attacks. Nothing more. In fact, the move was so useless that Yamcha ceased using it after Dragon Ball Z, only using it in the original series. While it has made appearances in video games, including Dragon Ball FighterZ, the Wolfang Fist has been defunct for quite some time, as even its creator has found it to be completely useless in a world of energy attacks and Super Saiyans. We don't think Yamcha's as weak as the memes make him out to be, since the self-destructing Cyberman that cemented his weak status only did so because he couldn't defeat Yamcha fair and square, but the Wolfang Fist is definitely a dud of a technique. As much as people may love Videl, us included, she's by experience alone on a lower power level than Yamcha or other lower tier superhuman warriors. She knows how to fly, has a decent grasp on energy control, and is a highly skilled normal martial artist. But on the larger power scale of the franchise, she's pretty low. Now that doesn't make her any less of a great character, since she could probably kick Yamcha's butt with nothing more than a glare. Since Videl is mostly a normal martial artist, her signature attack, the Eagle Kick, isn't all that effective, especially against the powered-up Spopovich, who recovered from the attack like it was nothing. Though Videl's able to give the Eagle Kick a bit more oomph by adding her flight to it, the move is ultimately one of the weaker techniques in the franchise. Of course, it's still much stronger than the signature attack of her father. There's no doubt that Videl's much stronger than her father, and as such, his signature technique, the Dynamite Kick, ranks lower than her Eagle Kick. First time we saw the Dynamite Kick was at the beginning of the Cell games, when Mr. Satan stepped into the ring to prove himself against Cell. After legitimately winning the World Martial Arts Tournament fair and square, Mr. Satan had something of a big head, which combined with his love of theatrics and crowd-pleasing made him think he could take on the likes of Cell. After showing off a bit, Mr. Satan began attacking Cell with a flurry of kicks, which became known as his Dynamite Kick. But as we all know, these are just normal kicks, and as such they really didn't do much aside from annoying Cell. Of course, Mr. Satan's news crew thought they were doing something, only to be shocked when the mustached martial artist was swatted away like a fly. Boy, was he swatted. This was another tough one to rank because while biting an opponent has never really done all that much damage in the history of Dragon Ball, it has actually served a purpose in a number of fights. Goku has never finished off an opponent with a bite, but he has managed to get the upper hand or get out of a tough situation by way of biting. Heck, he's even used it just to show he wasn't going to give up so easily, like when he bit King Piccolo after his limbs had been crippled. But at the end of the day, despite how useful biting has been to Goku, like when he decided to have a taste of Frieza's tail, it hasn't ever really done enough damage to be ranked on the same level as, say, Destructo Disc or the Masenko. Because of how useful it can be, biting is not in the bottom 5, but it's pretty close. One of Goku's earliest signature attacks was Rock, Scissors, and Paper, a 3-part rush attack that was invented by his adoptive grandfather. Grandpa Gohan's technique actually lives up to its name, as it consists of a rock-like fist, a scissor-like poke to both eyes, and a paper-like palm strike. The attack worked for the early comedy-focused days of Dragon Ball, since it's wonderfully slapstick. But as the franchise shifted more toward intense battles, the technique was done away with. And good riddance, we say, since while it was funny to see Goku pull the Dragon Ball equivalent to the Three Stooges bit, the attack isn't all that effective compared to other techniques of Goku's. But it would be funny to see Goku pull this on Frieza, just to see if he could. Remember that time Krillin forgot he didn't have a nose and almost lost to his super smelly opponent because his lack of hygiene made him too foul to attack? Yeah, early Dragon Ball was kinda weird, with Krillin's fight against Bacterian being one of the weirder parts. So what does this smelly fighter have to do with the weakest techniques in Dragon Ball? Well, Bacterian's smelliness was technically his main battle tactic, so his deliberate lack of bathing could be considered a technique, and a weak one at that. Although the smell was so incredibly pungent that everyone around Bacterian became sick to their stomachs, the tactic has no effect on opponents like Krillin, who have no nose. Additionally, a more seasoned fighter would likely be able to push past the smell to finish the fight. Not to mention that being so unclean probably left Bacterian with a shorter lifespan. So we wouldn't call smelliness an effective or smart battle tactic. Speaking of Krillin, the character is considered by many to be the strongest human in the Dragon Ball franchise, mainly because he developed the Destructo Disc and has held his own against some of the toughest villains throughout Dragon Ball Z, and Super. That said, Krillin also has one very weird and rather weak technique in his repertoire that was only used once, and comes in as number 3 in our ranking of weakest techniques. The technique in question is his balloon technique, the act of inflating his body with air as a means of slowing his descent, which is very strange for a lot of reasons. While anything is technically possible in the world of Dragon Ball, the world's leader is a talking dog after all, this part of Krillin's match with Goku has always seemed a bit strange and out of place. And aside from helping Krillin slow his fall to the ground, the balloon technique is pretty much useless. There's one other technique of Krillin's that unfortunately makes the list of weakest techniques. However, unlike his other attacks, this one was more of an empty-headed, misguided accident. We're of course talking about the time that Krillin threw a rock at Goku's head to see how strong and fast he was. This was after Goku had mastered holding his Super Saiyan form for a long period of time, staying transformed the days leading up to the Cell Games. In an attempt to see just how strong Goku was, Krillin chucked a rock at his head. And though it was pretty painful, Goku stating as much with angry yelling, this technique is still one of the weakest attacks in Dragon Ball history, which is why it baffles us that the rock throw became part of Krillin's arsenal in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Maybe we're just meant to properly utilize the move, but the rock throw may be the game's worst attack. Last and literally least, we have a technique that's been presented in the Dragon Ball franchise as long as there have been flashy fighters who love to put on a show, posing. We're not talking about battle stances. That's a legitimate way of readying oneself for battle. Nope, we're talking about any time a warrior has done a pose, or a series of poses in order to pump themselves up for battle, or in an attempt to intimidate their enemies. Everyone from the Ginyu Force to Gohan's Great Saiyaman persona has used poses to enhance their fighting, though it hardly, if ever, succeeds in doing anything more than making them look like a fool. Gohan especially, since nobody in the world of Dragon Ball thinks his posing is cool, but we kinda like it. Because of how little posing manages to do in a fight, we decided to rank it as the weakest technique in all of Dragon Ball. And those are some of the weakest techniques in all of Dragon Ball. Do you agree with our choices? Are any of these techniques actually super strong? Did we leave out any useless attacks? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more Dragon Ball videos. Thanks for watching.
What you gonna do, Willie? I'm gonna get Urkel. Why you gonna do that, Willie? Because he humiliated me. But you humiliated me.